Austin. And he said these words, which I think are very powerful. We light our chalice this morning in their spirit. I am only one, but still, I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. And it is in that spirit that we gather every week so that we can figure out what we can do as individuals and as a community. And also, in gathering, we come together to sit in silence, to meditate, to hear music that lifts us and upholds us, and to understand at some level what wisdom can sustain us in the moment in which we find ourselves. We also come together as a community of friends. And I'll be talking about friendship today. If there is a particular sorrow in your heart, as we begin to sing our opening hymn, please come forward and place a shell or a stone in the water. If there is a joy in your heart, please come forward and light one of our votive candles. Please rise as you are willing and able for hymn 300 with heart and mind.
Please be seated, my friends. Thank you so much for being with us here on this first day of religious education classes. You may have noticed that there's a little extra excitement in the air this morning. We will be singing our children out to their first day of classes in a few minutes, but I wanted to invite you all into a moment together of togetherness, of time to celebrate the mixing of generations, the interaction of generations, the sound of multiple generations, the energy of multiple generations, sharing space. This morning I wanted to share a story with the children and with the adults here gathered. It's a story that actually happened to me personally when I lived for a summer in Eugene, Oregon. I spent a summer in between my second and third year of college living in Eugene. I was working actually pumping gas at a gas station. It was one of the last gas stations in the United States that still sold leaded gasoline. We would have people come up from Northern California and down from Washington State with their huge RVs where they couldn't get leaded gasoline where they were, and they would pull into the gas station where I worked, and I would have to reset the pumps sometimes 2 or even 3 times to fill their huge, huge machines. While I was working at that gas station, I met somebody who was on the staff and worked for an annual event that was called the Oregon Country Fair. It's a huge event that brings people from all over the Northwest together in the forest for a few days for art, music, exchange of ideas. And the thing about the Oregon Country Fair is that there are people who have gone there for decades, over the span of their whole lifetime. There are people who spend the entire year waiting for the Oregon Country Fair to come around. I had never experienced it before, but I went out there, and my friend who I met was on the staff there, so he invited me to come the day before the fair opened. And the only people there were going to be staff. And I found that as I went there, every person around me all knew each other for years and years and years. And they were all running up and giving each other huge hugs. And they were saying, "How have you been?" And there I was, first time, feeling a little bit like some of you might feel today here. Feeling like you're walking into something that's been around for a while where everybody knows each other already. It was a community that was built around the idea of love, about the idea of friendship, about the idea of warm welcome. And no matter how much of that exuded from each person, there I was, feeling like a deer in the headlights and an outsider, trying to find my way in. And I decided I was going to take a walk through the forest because the Oregon Country Fair happens out in the middle of the forest, a little bit west of the city of Eugene. And I started walking through the forest, and I was admiring the trees. Huge, huge trees. Admiring the moss on the rocks. And I started hearing what I imagined at first to be like my own brain creating theme music to my walk, because I was hearing this rolling, beautiful piano music wafting its way through the forest towards me. And I thought, good job, brain, that's some good piano music. But then the music started getting louder as I kept walking. And I came around a little bend in the forest, and I found this man at an upright piano in the middle of the forest with nobody around, playing and playing and playing away. And he was playing music that actually reminded me a little bit of Dan Shaw, Eugene Kimball, who are wonderful improvisational musicians here at USNH. He was just inventing everything he was playing as he went along. And I came a little bit closer, and he didn't stop, but his piano playing volume lowered a little bit. And he introduced himself to me while playing, He said, "My name's Johnny Hahn, and I am the spirit of the forest." I found out later that Johnny Hahn had been at the Oregon State Fair for about 3 decades at that point, and he is a street musician who wheels his piano. He has his piano on all-terrain wheels, about 8 inches high, and he wheels it into the middle of Seattle, into farmers markets in Portland and Eugene. And what he does, the way that he builds community, is wherever he is, he starts feeding the air with music. And my understanding is that he plays for 8 or 9 hours without stopping each day of the Oregon Country Fair. And I thought to myself, here is somebody who knows how to channel their energy up through their body and out through their fingertips and create welcome, create love. Here is somebody who knows how to draw friends from far away together, whether they know each other for decades or whether they're first time in a place. That's the power of good music. That's the power of welcome. Let's draw a little bit of that power out together this morning as we start our journey this year, and let's channel some of that energy, if we can, into our young friends who are going to move their way up to their first day of classes now. Let us sing to them. And anybody here who is in one of our religious education classes, why don't you rise at this point and come with me off to your classes, upstairs, downstairs, wherever it may be, and let's sing them out. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere you may go. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you every day, everywhere you may go. Covenant. Each week we recite a brief version of our covenant. I encourage you to read the full covenant on our website. While the following words express our intentions in writing, our true covenant lives and breathes in our actions. Please join me now in reciting the words that appear in your order of service or in the chat on the live stream. We covenant together to create and nurture a culture of respect and kindness, and to engage in the spiritual and everyday practice of loving more generously. To this end, we will strive to be open, value differences, listen deeply, use kind language, speak our truths, work with conflict, seek humor and joy.
Thank you, David. Boy, that was a remarkably permission-granting meditation that Jesse gave us, and I feel good about the 9-hour sermon you're about to give. Without pause, without pause. I'm very excited that in the middle of November, we have the author James Marcus coming as part of our Authors Talk in his new biography of Emerson. Probably the best book written about Emerson in 75 years. It's a remarkable book, and I hope we get a lot of folks here to hear it. But the title of it mystified me when it first came out, and as we live our daily life, I'm getting it. It's a quotation directly from Emerson's journal, that he was glad to the Brink of Fear. That's the title. Emerson wrote in his journal one evening, crossing a bare common in a new puddle at twilight and under a clouded sky, without having in my thoughts any occurrence of especial good fortune, I have enjoyed a perfect exaltation. That ultimately is the spiritual life. Without a special good fortune, on a cloudy day, crossing a bare common, that's our life. And yet, we have the gift, the opportunity, the moment to have our hearts just open, to feel gladness, and to the very edge of fear. We started a Zoom meeting earlier in the congregational year, the worship committee, and as we popped up on the screen, I forget who said it, I think it was Laura Fawcett, who said, not a lot of happy things are happening right now, but I am so happy to see each one of your faces. To be at the very edge of exaltation, of joy. Let us hold silence together. And may this joy be ours.
Hello, folks. So this is exactly why we need younger blood here in the pulpit, because I was supposed to say something first. Each week we lift up the spiritual value of generosity by taking an offering for the ministries of this congregation, and then we start the music. So, have pity on us, folks, and let's get some younger blood up here. And just don't forget, we are just going to keep giving you opportunities to be generous here at USNH. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Dean. My pronouns are he and them. Our reading this morning is short, and I'm going to read it twice. The Sky Becomes One by Li Xingzhao. The sky becomes one with its clouds, the waves with the mist. In heaven's starry river, 1,000 sails dance. As if dreaming, I return to the place where the highest lives. And I hear a voice from the heavens, "Where am I going?" I answer, "The road is long," and I sigh. Soon the sun will be setting. Hard to find words in poems to carry amazement. On its 90,000-mile wind, the huge inner bird is soaring. O wind, do not stop. My little boat of raspberry wood has not yet reached the mortal islands. I will now ring the sound bowl. I would like for you to listen carefully, and I would like to ask that you bow your head when you can no longer hear its tone. Listen intently, feel the vibrations. Please bow your head when you no longer hear or feel the bowl. Then I will read the poem again, perhaps to find deeper understanding and meaning. The sky becomes one with its clouds, the waves with the mist. In heaven's starry river, 1,000 sails dance. As if dreaming, I return to the place where the highest lives and hear a voice from the heavens. Where am I going? I answer, the road is long, and sigh. Soon the sun will be setting. Hard to find words in poems to carry amazement. On its 90,000-mile wind, the huge inner bird is soaring. O wind, do not stop. My little boat of raspberry wood has not yet reached the immortal islands. I now ask the choir to come up for the anthem.
Life is short and poetry is long, and every year I try to find a new poet that can go with me on the journey. And I think I found the person for this year. His name is Robert Duncan. I'd never heard of him, but he died in 1989. He was based in San Francisco. He went from the late 1940s as an active writer through the beat scene into the 1960s. He will always be renowned and remembered for having published in 1944 in a national journal the essay, "The Homosexual in Society." It was an unbelievably brave pre-Stonewall assertion of human dignity. But in the end, for Duncan, it was the poetry that mattered, and perhaps his most famous poem is an echo of the New England transcendentalists that have helped give birth to this free religious movement. The poem is called "Often I Am Permitted to Return to a Meadow, but that is a made place, that is mine. It is so near the heart, an eternal pasture folded in all thoughts. It is only a dream of the grass glowing east towards the source of the sun in an hour before the sun's going down. In a secret we see in a children's game a ring around the roses told. And often I am permitted to return to a meadow as if it were a given property of the mind. And the reason I discovered Duncan is that he wrote a letter to an English friend of his where he said there were 3 supreme virtues that Confucius helped teach the world. And as I read this letter, I was struck and realized, hey, a sermon. The first supreme virtue was humility, and I'm not going to preach about that, although I am one of the great world's authority on humility. And then he talked about the Chinese character, which apparently Confucius was, in terms of his students' notes, the first time this was written down, although it had existed for generation upon generation up till then. And that is the letter Qi, Qi. It is life force, and we're going to talk about that a lot today. And the last was, and what a great joy it is to have friends from afar. I really responded to that, because friendship is very important to me, and we're going to be weaving in this sermon the connection between life force and friendship. I could talk about marriage. Some of us are married and some of us are not. And I can talk about love of parent and child. Some of us have children, some of us do not. But the reality is, I think it's in friendship that we really do touch the very source and essence of that life force that he alluded to, Qi. And I realized also that I kind of don't really know much of anything about Confucius. And I'm not going to give you a lecture, but when you go to the symphony in downtown Hartford, Hartford is not replete with statues, but there's a lovely statue of Confucius right there at the Bushnell Hall. And as I walked past it, I realized how little I know. Because when I was a young man, and I don't know that much about Chinese culture, although I do have a grandchild, Victoria, in a Shanghai nursery, so I'm very proud of that. But I identified with Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, because he was wild, he was crazy, he was transcendentalist. He was the person that wrote There is a being, wonderful, perfect. It existed before heaven and earth, and how quiet it is, and how spiritual it is. It stands alone and does not change. It moves around and around, and does not on this account suffer. And all life comes from it. I do not know its name, and so I call it the Way. And I rejoice in its power. So I love Lao Tzu. He was insane. He was kind of a crazy guy. And I really responded to that. And I didn't respond to the sort of opposite character in Chinese philosophy and poetry and character, Confucius, because I just perceived him as conservative and cautious, sort of more of an ethicist kind of guy. And I realized this week I had sold Confucius short. I did not understand Chinese character at all, because in point of fact, it is the relationship and interfusion of the two of them that is the yin and the yang. You can't really understand the Way, Qi, unless you understand both of them. One free and romantic, the other cautious and conservative. And they reinforce each other. Confucius met Lao Tzu once, was shocked by him, and later wrote that he resembled in his mind a dragon. Well, what was Confucius? He was an advisor to politicians. He traveled for almost 30 years from one province to another, offering advice to politicians and warlords. And do you know how often politicians and warlords listen to people like Confucius? Not much. But in the last 10 years of his life, Master Kong, as he was called, gathered around him at first dozens and then hundreds to teach of the ethical meaning of relationship and ultimate harmony. And so hundreds listened, and then thousands, and today, millions. And I'll talk a lot more about that. I think in the end, it's so important to understand. Oops. You know, my sermon has fallen to the ground. Thank you very much. I was wondering what had happened to it. I thought eloquence had blown it away. So Duncan, when he encountered this concept of qi, he translated it not as the way, not as the Tao. He translated it as what he called the effort. And why? Because qi is the divine energy that infuses all that is. And yes, you will find it in mountains, and rivers, and sky, and in all creatures. It is a radiant power, greater than our own power. He called it an active tension in the whole, which includes human nature. Sister Wendy Beckett, the art critic, says, whereas landscape and nature are inherently imbued with qi, it is a grace that human beings must actively and seriously pursue. They have to enter qi consciously. It is not a given. It's everywhere. It's infused in everything. But you and I have to engage with it. We have to consciously reach it. That's why Duncan translated it as the effort. And why? Because without that life flow, which was translated at that time is air, or breath. Without that, the active yin and yang of all that is cannot function. There's no one definition. I'm not giving a scientific thing, and I'm not giving a philosophical thing. This is inherently a poetic and spiritual realization. It is diffuse and vast and awesome in its range of thought. But it's not murky. It's not gobbledygook. It is a specific power. It is a force that drives all that is, all that will be. And it is a moral and effective energy that we may tap into. Just like the earth has its wind, we can tap into chi and be changed, and then change others and change the world. And as the philosopher says, to be one that connects and pervades everything. This is the power that gives birth to the world and every creature or form found in the world, and indeed the universe. And this is not a particularly Chinese notion. It's found anywhere and everywhere if you look right. It's like an aura. You've met people that have a certain aura about them, a radiance in their face, a certain sort of life energy. You've met people like that. And they are infused with that chi. And Egyptians called it ka. And the Greeks called it psyche. And the Romans call it spiritus. And the Hindus, prana. It's anywhere and everywhere you care to look. And it's in this room, and it's in you, and it's potentially the energy that can change everything. Spirituality, in this sense, is a discovery of something that is in you but must be activated. It's a power you possess, and you will discover it at its highest with the exaltation that I alluded to earlier in this service. That sense of ecstasy, that sense of joy. And I would say that's exactly what that last supreme virtue was all about. What in heaven's name did Confucius mean when he said that the other supreme virtue was the joy that you find when a friend comes to you from afar? Now, as many of you know, I was raised in East Tennessee. And so there's an old joke about a little boy putting up his little Christmas creche, and there's the little baby Jesus, and there's the animals, and there's the mother and the father. Instead of the three wise men, the little boy has a fire truck and three firemen with a hose. And they said, I don't understand what you've done here. He says, well, it said that the three wise men came from afar. Now, you're very indulgent to laugh at that joke, because it's a very, very bad joke. But it feels good, doesn't it? The chi has infused you. I think that's great. And to show how important it was to Confucius, it's the very first words of the Analects. The master said, to learn and at times practice, is that not happiness? To have friends come afar, is that not joy? I don't know how far you come when you come here, and I don't know how far people come when they zoom in. All I know is to gather in friendship can change the world. I know that it can. To transcend distance, literal and figurative, to share experience and learning together, to experience camaraderie and connection. That is ultimately for me what is to welcome happiness and joy. Because it is in other people that I find chi. Yes, of course I find it in myself, but it's realized, it is grasped, it is engaged with when it's with other people, and it's at its most highest when you are in conversation and connection with a friend who has come to you. And why is this? Friends bring the world to us. Friends bring us back to ourselves. And mutual trust and respect and loyalty that goes beyond just morality, it touches on joy. Confucius said that we experience almost everything in life in relationship. And so that's what he was concerned about. The relationship of power to people, yes. The relationship of parent to child, yes. The relationship of those who love one another and those who care for one another. But it was in friendship, the face-to-face engagement, that he found the most high of chi, this life force and energy. And he asked a question that I have had reverberating in me all week. He asked a very simple question. And in this brutal time in which we find ourselves, it's a pretty good question to ask over and over again. Confucius, the Master Kung, asked the question, why not reciprocity? He asked it over and over again. It was his chief message. Why not reciprocity? Emerson said, I awake this morning with devout thanksgiving for my friends, the old and the new. This life force found in relationship is not abstract. It's not woo or new agey. It is so real in its connectedness in those moments where we discover, rediscover, and uncover our true essence in one another. Now, Mark Twain said, the holy passion of friendship is of so sweet and steady and loyal and enduring a nature that it will last through a whole lifetime if not asked to lend money. So let's just concentrate on the sweet part of that. It's found everywhere. You don't have to search hard for it. It's here, and it's in the ancient scriptures. The Hebrew scriptures said of the friendship of Jonathan and David, he loved him even as he loved his own soul. He loved him even as he loved his own soul. Because friends are a mirror. If you want to know the state of your spirit, take a look at your friendships. And Emerson said, to have a friend is to be a friend. This is not just waiting to receive the world's bounty, although that bounty is everywhere. It's what Duncan called the effort. We reach out. We become that friend. We engage this world. We don't wait. We don't set up obstacles for people. We engage. Because ultimately, that chi is waiting to flow through us, but only if we let it, and only if we try. to truly love, to truly be thankful every morning, every day. I am not saying that any of this is easy and blissful. It's full of complications. It's full of effort. But in the end, these mirrors we find in friendship are not merely references to yourself. It is the larger picture. It is your ultimate connection to the world forces that made you, hold you, and are tender with you. As the poet Duncan said, the meadow within is so near the heart. And with friendship, with right relations, when we ask the question, what about reciprocity? We may live this life force, this chi, to flow within and through and beyond us and beyond our days. This is not mysticism. This is the most practical advice I could ever say from this pulpit. To let this chi flow through you and with you. There is a being, wonderful, perfect. It existed before heaven and earth, and how quiet it is, and how spiritual it is, and all life comes from it. And I do not know its name, and so I call it the way. Let's go on the way together. Amen. Well, now we get to sing, and as we planned this service, we thought, what in heaven's name can follow that sermon? And what we decided was to sing Spirit of Life, which is kind of the unofficial anthem of Unitarian Universalism. And we're going to, as Jonathan read the poem twice, we're going to sing Spirit of Life twice. So, Spirit of Life, please rise as you are willing and able. 1, 2, 3. It can't be simpler than that. 1, 2, 3. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Shape of justice, roots hold me close, wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me, Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice, roots hold me close, wings set me free, Spirit come to me. And now we pass the flame out into the wider world. Please say these words in your order service together. Carry forth this chalice flame, its illumination into our daily lives, its sustaining warmth into our relationships, the light of reason shining beyond these walls. May we carry the fire of hope in our hearts this day and in the week to come. And now may peace, which passes all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge of love. And may this peace be yours. Go forth in peace. Amen. Thank you, William. Thank you, Artemis. Thank you. Thank you, David Jones. I said to David he could go wild today. He did. He did.